All right, thank you. So one announcement, if it turns out that the fishing tour is canceled this afternoon, I'll be doing a medley of NSYNC tunes with this microphone a little bit later, so come on by, it'll be awesome, I promise. It's been a couple of years since I've been at EIS, and I think it's always such a great conference. So I saw that a lot of you are first-timers here. I think one of the things that's so important about this place is it gives us a chance to step back. If you think about all the things that you have to worry about as an email marketer, it really puts the lie to that kind of phrasing you get from some execs sometimes of like, oh, it's just email, right? Think about all those things you have to worry about every day to get the campaign out. And what this conference allows us to do, what I think Ken has done so well in putting this together, is it gives us a chance to step back and to think about the big picture, right? Sometimes it feels like we worry so much about getting that email to the consumer, we forget that it's not the envelope, it's what's inside. And I think that's what's so important about the moment in front of us in this industry today, right? Experiences of your email are everything to the consumer. We have to work so hard to get it to them, but it's ultimately what's inside that envelope that counts. And experience is really made up of content, right? That's the thing that we have to think about, is what's inside that email. And if that's it, then content is really everything that we need to focus on. Now, of course, I'm not saying that all the other mechanics of getting your email operations done and out the door are not important. Yes, of course you have to do those. Those are table stakes, as they have been for 20 years in this industry. But the revolution that's happening in front of us, and that so many of the vendors that are here at this conference today are thinking about, is what's the content, and how do we drive the right experience that activates our customers in the way that we want. And this is really true because for the last 20 years, when we think about personalization, we've thought of it as kind of a matchmaking experience, right? If I just put the right product in front of the right customer at the right time. How many times have you heard that kind of phrasing, right? Like it's old hat by now. But the problem is, even though we think we're doing personalization, most of our consumers don't think that at all, right? So we see this nice quote from Brendan Witcher. We've heard him referenced a couple of times today. He's an analyst focused on personalization at Forrester, right? So there's this huge delta. Most of us think we're doing personalization, and less than half of consumers agree with us. Now, there's a lot of reasons why that might be, right? There's all kinds of things happening in consumers' lives. So they may miss out on the differences between an email sent in 2000 and one we sent today, and how different they actually are. But if you go look at eDataSource or any of the other sources you can find for emails, right, you often see something like we have on the left, which is really just kind of basic emails. Now, there might be a tray of new products in there, or maybe recommendations that we think of as personalization. But I think that delta between what customers say and what we think, right, that delta in experience, it's because they're not thinking about what's there on the right, right? That the entire email can be personalized. Everything from the navigation down to the footer is a part of that experience. And it's not enough to leave personalization in that tray of products down below the fold. Everything about it, including the promotions, the navigation, every single pixel in that email can contribute to driving your program going forward. Now, I think there's a real problem with personalization that we don't think about a lot in this industry. We spend so much time thinking about data, so much time thinking about the algorithms, that we forget that it's actually hard to put that together into an experience that actually drives consumers. You saw Manali just now talk about how data isn't the problem, using it in a meaningful way is. And I think that's because we've misconceived of personalization, right? We thought of it as this matchmaking experience rather than actually an experience for the consumer that's full-throated, right? Visceral. Really important to think about. And with Movable Link, you can take every aspect of the content, every pixel in that email, and use it to drive the experience you want. So yes, you know Movable Link from the tradition, its roots around contextual marketing, right? Using the weather or location to actually select and generate content for you, right? So we can change it to reflect what's relevant for her in this moment based on where she is and what's going on around her, right? Continue to generate thousands or even hundreds of thousands or millions of variations of the same piece of content so that you can give the experience to her that drives the activation you want. Now, that's what you may know Movable Link for, but in the last few years, we've been working hard to bring in behavioral data as well, too. Every single pixel in this email can be brought to life by that behavioral data. This is not a triggered program, right? This is not a separate journey. This is just any email that you send can now weave behavioral data into it so that the content you show is the most relevant. And of course, you can bring in your CRM data as well too. So you can use all of that to be able to drive personalization. And that's where this gets really interesting, is now we start to think about content as the starting point, the experience is the starting point, and now what we do is bring data in and mix and match it to give the experience that we think will drive it the most activation. Movable Link is not an email service provider. We have relationships with everyone here that you've probably got on your own site. So if you are running any of the ESPs today, we can work with those. We can even work with homegrown systems. If you've been building your own to run your transactional program, you can run the same content across multiple ESPs. So it doesn't really matter where you are, what's happening. You can just build the content you want, drop it in your email, and you're done. And then what we do, we take the data sources that you have, whether that could be the CRM data, behavioral data, any internal API that you have, a partner's API, external data sources as well too. We can bring in NBA scores, for example, and you can use that to drive an exchange of information or an experience with the consumer. And then you can bring all your creative sources in too. So you heard a little bit earlier today, folks talking about bringing content off your website. We can just take a picture of it, essentially bring it into your email. But even more important, we've added the ability this year for you to just take individual elements off the page so that you can create heroes that look like they were designed specifically for the person in that moment, but were generated automatically off the content and data that you have on your website. What did you do? You designed it once, dropped it in every email, and you're done. And now you can go worry about optimizing that experience, starting to channel that savings back into your strategy or other areas of your program. This really matters a lot, right? The hidden problem of personalization, this idea of being stuck by the productivity, when we unstick that, what happens? Well, of course you can drive performance. If we were a personalization vendor that couldn't talk about a lift like an 18x return on investment from Bloomingdale's, we wouldn't be worth our salt, clearly. But I think what's more important is these other savings and benefits that you get, right? A massive reduction in the number of hours per campaign, say going from 10 down to 2, or we have a client on the West Coast that unfortunately we're not able to name, who had a 55% reduction in hours per campaign. What would you do if I could give you back half the time that you had? What would you do with that? Well, you might channel it back into better performance, or more importantly, like Starbucks, you could drive that back into better experiences. And you know when your consumers, your customers, are tweeting about your emails, you know you've made an impact on their lives. You've delivered a differentiated experience for your brand that drives performance. So thank you. That is really Movable Link. We work with a number of major retailers and virtually everyone in the top of retail, travel, financial services. You would see those logos in our client base. And just so you know, I've got a couple of other folks here at Movable Link. So Jeremy Seltzer, and then Vince, where Vince? Vince, you're, there you go, right up front, the thing right in front of me. You know what I need? Coffee. You know what you need? Coffee. Let's go get some coffee, right? But come by, we're not going to take questions right now. Come find one of us, and we'll talk a little bit more about personalization and where this is headed today. So thank you, and